Hey friends, welcome back to my sewing room. My name is Becca, and in today's video, we're going to dive into some of the finishes that I had this year. As you can see from the display behind me, it is still Christmas time. I've got my decorations up, and I am busy working on some projects that I want to have pieced so that I can get them quilted in the new year. In this video, I'm going to share little video clips and photographs of all of the quilts that I have finished this year. That means they were pieced, quilted, bound, and ready to be used this year, even if I started piecing them in years past. I hope you'll enjoy my little trunk show. Let me know in the comments down below which of my finishes this year were your favorite. In the spring of 2022, Monique included this kit in one of her open gate subscription boxes, and I loved it. It sat on my shelf for a while, and then this year I finally put it together. I backed it with this beautiful whale fabric and was even proud to have it on display for my Guild's quilt show. This beautiful purple quilt was a puzzle mystery quilt from years past. It was pieced all together, but then it sat waiting to be quilted for what seemed like an eternity. Thankfully, I gave Beth from Goody Goods quite a bit of business this year, and she was able to get this one quilted for me. I had it bound and labeled just in time for Easter and gifted it to Grayson, as you can see here. Speaking of older puzzle mystery quilts, here's another one that I finished this year as well. I pieced it years ago. I don't know what year this was. I don't even remember which one this was, but this is another one that Beth was able to help me get finished this year. I got it bound and I actually already gifted it. I don't know who it went to. It was a friend of my sister-in-law's, but this one has moved on to its forever home. This is the third puzzle mystery quilt that I finished this year, and Ian is actually helping me show you this quilt. This is Village Green. It started in 2023, and guess what? I finished it in 2023. Because I added the optional borders onto this quilt, it made it quite big. In fact, I think it finishes around queen size. I had a lot of fun putting this together. I did all of the clues on live streams this year, and I even got to be a part of the Village Green reveal on Cotton Cut social media when they revealed the finished project in November. In the spring, Tiffany, Teresa, Ian, and I all took a challenge. We wanted to see what each of us could make using the same layer cake. We took the Line Works line by Tula Pink, brought in our own pattern and coordinating fabric, and looked to see what we could all put together. I chose the Kaleidoscope of Stars pattern, which I will link to in the description box down below in case you want to pick it up. I also chose the black fairy dust fabric to go with that layer cake and just Tula Pink solids to be the star legs on this. In the end, I loved the bright colors that popped against that black background. The quilt has been finished. Beth from Goody Goods actually quilted it for me, and I've already gifted it to its forever home. My friend Karen, who goes to all of my New Kids concerts with me, is enjoying this quilt. This year, I leaned into trying to write quilt patterns. The first pattern that I was really proud of was called Jeweled Star, and you can see it here. When I tested the pattern, I pulled all different forms of batiks that were my mom's favorite colors, and I made this for her. It was quilted, bound, and gifted to her on her birthday. And by the way, if you want to pick up this pattern, I will link to it in the description box down below. I also wrote a pattern called Tumbling Blocks, which doesn't have any half square triangle units in it in case those intimidate you. These are all just straight lines. If you can sew straight, you can do this project. And honestly, this quilt probably only takes you about an afternoon to put the top together. I loved it so much I did it multiple times. The first time I did it in Toy Story fabric for my nephew. And the second time I did it with my friend Mary. Each of us used half of the same layer cake. So we had quilts that were really sisters. And I kept that one for me. Mike Odell over at Legit Kits challenged me this year to step into the world of foundation paper piecing with one of his kits. I was intimidated at first, but by the time this quilt top was finished, I loved it. If you guys haven't checked out Legit Kits, trust me, you are missing out. Hop on over. I'll put a link in the description box down below. This kit was called Ursula Minor, but I call the quilt Ursa, which is Latin for little bear. I pieced it, quilted, and bound it all by myself, and I'm really excited to submit this to some shows in the future. Earlier this year, I taught the Friendship Braid Table Runner for an online class for So Yeah, and I really had a blast with that. But I wanted to practice that technique a bit, so I made several of these to make sure I absolutely had it down. All of the friendship braids that I made as a test ended up going into a quilt that I called Waves of Love. I gifted this to my friend Thajal as a congratulations present on her engagement. This was my oldest UFO. Seriously, it was huge and it weighs a lot too. This was the 2018 designer mystery quilt from Fat Quarter Shop. I started it years ago and it sat on my shelf for a long time, but this year I got it finished. The background is a beautiful bright green that my sister Alicia just absolutely loves. So I kind of knew as soon as the quilt was done that this was going to go to her. The quilt has been quilted, labeled. I snuggled with it for quite a while, and it is off in the mail to Alicia. If you've been around my channel for a little while, you probably already know the story of this quilt, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. This is the 2022 to 2023 Sew Sampler quilt. It's called Bliss. This was a block of the month that I was doing tutorial videos for, but I got a little behind, and before I could finish the quilt, Fat Quarter Shop released the layout. As soon as I saw that setting, yeah, I was done. I offered it up to a viewer if somebody wanted to finish this, and Stephanie Fulton actually got it. I did not expect this to ever come back to my home, so you can imagine my surprise when the quilt top showed up at my doorstep, all pieced with the binding even prepared. So I sent it off to Beth. She did a lovely job quilting it. I got it back, bound and labeled, and now it's on display in my sewing room. A couple years ago, Tiffany and I got together on a live stream and we put together the Magnolia quilt top from Chelsea Stratton, which I will link to in the description box down below. I chose the Seashore Driveline by Sherry and Chelsea, which I just absolutely adored. In fact, it's so pretty that my sister adored it as well. This year I got it quilted and bound, and I was able to gift it to her as a beautiful Christmas present. Don't worry though, I've got plenty more Sherry and Chelsea's Seashore Drive on my shelves, so I can make something beautiful for myself with this fabric. This year, my mom picked up quilting and we both decided to work on the same pattern with our own fabric. The pattern's called Layer Cake Pop. It is a free pattern by Fat Quarter Shop, and I will link to it down below. I used the Sugar Pie line from Lalo Boutique. This is a very old print that I just absolutely loved and I've been holding on to for years. Seriously, I think I bought the layer cake when I first started quilting. Once all of the blocks were pieced together, I passed it off to my friend Kim Johnson to do the quilting on this. She pulled a backing fabric that I am absolutely in love with and did a marvelous job quilting each of these blocks. The quilt is now finished and draped over one of the chairs in my sitting area in my sewing room. I did this beautiful two-color quilt following the Home Again pattern from Lori Holt. I selected some of Lori Holt's basic fabrics to make this a black and white or gray and white quilt. My husband absolutely loves how this one's finished out, and it fits perfectly on the sofa in our family room. So I was really happy to be able to keep this one for ourselves. In early 2023, I taught my pattern Framed Stars during a Zoom class, and I used my quilt that I made during that workshop to enhance my ability to do free motion feathers on my long arm. I have always wanted to have a tree skirt that I made myself and coordinating stockings for all 5 members of my family, and this year that happened. I picked up all the fabric during a quilt shop hop that I did with Tiffany and Ian during Black Friday shopping weekend, And over the few weeks that followed Thanksgiving, leading up into Christmas, I was able to complete 5 stockings, a tree skirt, and even a quilted ornament. I only got one Advent box this year. It was the Open Gates Christmas box from Monique Jacobs. There were 4 projects in that box, and I finished one of them. This is her tumbling presents pattern featuring the Christmas Eve fabric from Lella Boutique. This is by far my most treasured finish from 2023. It is the Rose in Bloom block of the month that I did with Fat Quarter Shop. This was a personal sew that I was doing offline. I wanted to make it big enough for our king size bed. And so as a result, I ended up adding some additional borders to it, and I sent it off to Beth from Goody Goods to do the quilting on it. It's quilted, labeled, and beautifully displayed on our bed, and we use it every single night. This year, I wanted to make handmade gifts for most of the people on my list. Several of them got this beautiful pouch. This is the Hemingway pouch from Center Street Quilts. It is a breeze to put together, especially once you know what you're doing. The pattern is very well written. I will link to it in the description box down below. But if you are like me and more of a visual learner and want to see somebody put it together step by step, I also made a video tutorial for it, and I'll link to that down below as well. This was such a wonderful way to catalog all of the different things that I made this year. And when I stop and take a look at those pictures and video clips, I realize just how productive I've been. Most of my quilts, I gift. I give them away because I want to send them out into the world and I want people to enjoy them. And I can't keep everything I make. And as a result, I oftentimes forget about just how many quilts I've made. Thank you, friends, so much for watching my video. Come back next week where I'll have a wonderful video to help you kick off your 2024 just right. I'll see you all then. Bye!